Wonderful. Thank you, Salunas. And thank you all for being here from all corners of the globe, it looks like. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, all of those things. As we are arriving, I'd actually love to invite you to put one more thing in the chat, which is what's one thing that you already felt today in your body as a sensation that you are grateful for, or that was meaningful, or that was nice for you? So as I'm kind of kicking us off, just to give us a chance to speak or to touch in with one sensation, or it could also be a mood, but sensations are welcome. Soft sheets, the hand of my child this morning. Some folks said peace, smiling. That's both a mood maybe and also a sensation. Joy, warmth, thank you. Anticipation, love holding my dog, me too, chest open, restfulness. The taste of a delicious smoothie, I am with you on that one. Enjoyable hot drink. Nice, something maybe unexpectedly sad. Good energy. A few moments of solitude being in my head. Welcome. Overwhelmed. Okay. So we're here for this session, and we're here in human bodies, human experiences from all corners of the world, and having all different kinds of experiences right now. And I'm looking forward to being with you in all of that. And I'm looking forward to being with you in a conversation about sourcing commitments through the body. If we haven't met yet, I'm LeeAnn Mallorie. I am one of the lead teachers here at the Strozzi Institute. I've been in and around teaching and training with Strozzi since about 2007. Hard for me to believe it's been that long. And currently I co-teach some of the public courses. I also do work inside of organizations. Some of those are things that if you haven't yet had a chance to taste with us, I know we have a couple courses coming up. So Lunas will let you know at the end what that looks like, possibly some live courses, COVID permitting, and also lots of virtual courses happening at this time. So I'm part of the team that holds that space for you. And today we're really here for a conversation, as I said, about sourcing commitments through the body. When we thought about why this conversation and why now, really what came up for me was at this time, there's an opportunity as well as a lot of challenge. But part of what I see as the opportunity is that there's a chance at this moment in time, whether it be for us as individuals or for organizations or the planet, to really create a better future for ourselves. And what I found through my many years of doing this work and other practice is that when it comes to really creating a better future, in the face perhaps of challenge or in the face of what else might be going on that's hard, it really asks something more of us than just having a good idea. I haven't yet found that a good idea has been enough to get me through to create something new, to really step into something different when the going gets tough. Real change, from what I can tell, really will test our motivation. And then in some ways that asks us to dig deeper, to listen to our deeper longings, and to have some ground underneath the commitments or the intentions or the declarations that we set. So the opportunity in this conversation today is to be in an exploration of how we might source a more powerful or a sustainable commitment, a sustainable intention around a new future for ourselves or for something bigger than ourselves, coming through the body. And what I can promise is that we will not necessarily help you land a brand new declaration today. What else I can promise is that we'll do some groundwork here today to help you drop in a layer deeper and really sense into what are you longing for, or what might be wanting to come to form in your life or in the community around you that might be part of what it's time to take a stand for, or it's time to lean into. So I'm really holding this as an opportunity today to do some groundwork and to possibly to slow down. I personally am one of those people who, when I think about sourcing a new commitment or taking an intention, it's like I want to get there fast. And that doesn't always serve in terms of the commitment being as grounded or as deep or as true as it can possibly be. So that's what I've got for you this morning. We're going to do some practice. I'm going to share a bit more around this idea of commitment and declaration from the Strozzi Institute perspective. And before we do all of that, what I'd like to do is actually invite us into just a brief moment of kind of coming into our bodies and dropping into a deeper attention space. So let's do this together. If you feel like pushing back at all from your screen or turning away from your screen for a moment, feel free. Or if it's inspiring for you to keep your eyes here and loosely take in the other people who are here with you, you're welcome to do that as well. And I want to invite you to take a deep or deeper breath and just let yourself bring your awareness into the life of the body. So bringing your attention here to sensations. You might feel, for example, for your behind on the chair or your back on the chair if you're sitting, your feet on the ground. You might feel for the rise and fall of your belly or your chest as you breathe. You could feel for places of relaxation, places of tension in your muscles. Maybe you notice an ache in your bones or your joints, or a place where there's something that feels more like a lightness or an opening. Really, without judgment, all of them are welcome. Just taking a moment to be with and to be in ourselves, in our bodies. And let yourself, I believe most of you are on mute, so go ahead and speak out loud into your own space if you can. One sensation that you notice. I'm noticing the weight on my butt cheeks on the chair. Only this practice of noticing and then translating it back into language, into thought. Good, and then let's do that one more time. So taking a moment to notice one more thing in the body. Noticing first, then speaking it out loud. I'm noticing a softness across my upper chest. Good, and then from this place of feeling, sensing, noticing, take a moment to check in with your body and ask your body, what does it know right now? Body, what do you know right now, right here in this moment? And listen for the answer. Maybe an insight comes, maybe a feeling or a sensation or an image comes. Maybe it seems like nothing comes. That's okay. We're planting seeds. If you'd like, you can ask it one more time. Body, what do you know right now? Okay. And when you're ready, if your eyes were closed, you're welcome to open your eyes. You can come back to join us here. And go ahead and share if you'd like something in the chat. What did you notice, or what does your body know? I really want to emphasize one more time that just in case your body's like mine and sometimes it didn't tell you anything, or it doesn't seem like it did, that's totally okay. That part of the path of somatics, of embodiment, is to begin to make space for your body to communicate, to be in touch, to be giving you some information, and it doesn't always happen right away. See lots of things in the chat here. So sensations, things like tingling, a sense of calm. Bree says, my body knows that change is coming. David says, my body says, I'm okay. Butterfly is in my stomach. Take a step, commit, says Nancy. Aaliyah, there's enough space for all my longing here. So your bodies have a lot to say this morning. I'm glad we asked. You probably know this already, and especially if you've been around this dojo for a long time, that already can be a profound practice. Just taking a moment to feel, to sense, and to ask. Thanks for sharing what you've got. So I'm going to read just a brief, I guess it's more of a quote than a poem, here for a moment, and then share a little bit about what we're going to be up to here today at another level. This is a piece that was actually sent to me this morning by a mentor, synchronistically, and it felt really appropriate to share it. What she shared with me is that it's adapted from Ivan Solovic's Intention, and it goes like this. Be here. Be here now and never leave. Imagine that your dreams have already come true. Live your life from this mindset. Predicate your behavior on this reality, not the illusions that surround you. Filter every thought, every question, and every answer from here. Let your focus and shift be born again, because dwelling from, not upon, the space you want to inherit is the fastest way to change absolutely everything. Be here. So, we want to have a conversation today about sourcing commitment through the body and do some practice around that. And really to kick us off, actually, I'd love to ask one more question for you all. So feel free to place your thoughts on this in the chat. The question is kind of why now? Why is it important for you or even for us at this time to be able to make a commitment, to be able to set a new intention or set a new direction? So at this moment, we're on the heels, not the heels, really still in many ways in the throes of a global pandemic. We've been in the process of uprisings for racial justice. We've been in the US here, bringing in a new administration. We have been going through a lot as a collective. And as individuals, we've also been going through a lot. And so it's a moment in time when there's a lot of loss, there's a lot of letting go, there's a lot of disruption, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of questioning going on. There's also, by my looking, a lot of possibility. Inside of the methodology we teach here at SI, we talk about things dissolving or becoming more disorganized, and then from that, something new can come forward. So this is a time, from my looking, that it can be really powerful to make a commitment, to set a new intention, to take a declaration. Let's see what you all have to say in the chat here. Of course, this is big, right? And then it's also very personal. So some things that folks shared about why a declaration, why now? Tori says, with all the old structures breaking away, I'm seeing things in new ways. What do I want to spend my energy on? Jean says, a big transition in my life to the next decade. Spring is coming, pandemic moving to the end. Beautiful. I'm going to just scroll up and skip around a bit since this chat moves fast. Erin says, because many directions got scrambled, I've been disoriented. There's a lot of chaos. I need some new directions that can withstand disruption. Yeah, new directions. Melanie says, to live an inspiring and inspired life. David says, building a bridge from business education to a world with more engaged humanity. Robin says, living with a commitment creates a rudder for our life. Absolutely. Steve says, the nation, our world are calling us to change direction individually and collectively. Thank you. I happen to agree with that, and you absolutely don't have to. I'm also seeing questions around the piece that I shared. We can share that with you afterwards for sure. Like I said, it was an adaptation and something that was sent to me, so we'll gather it and send it to you. I would give you the name, but I don't know if it's easy to find. Okay, so thank you all. Thanks for sharing those pieces. Thanks for bringing that in. Again, I happen to agree many of these things really resonate with me, and if you have differences of opinion, it's kind of like, why did you show up today, or why for you create a commitment now? One of the things that I've seen about a powerful commitment, especially in the context of, let's say, this type of a time of disorganization or disruption, is that it can allow us to have a sense of hope, a sense that we're moving towards something, and can kind of help in some ways to not necessarily alleviate the chaos or even alleviate the tension or the disorganization or the grief of things falling away or the, uncertainty in the change, but perhaps to give us a certain kind of ground to stand on, that we can be centered inside of that, and we can go, okay. And also, I see that there's a there in terms of where I'm headed or where we're headed, or even if I don't see it happening outside of me, that I can be a choice to be creating that for myself and perhaps for us. In terms of how this work fits inside of the bigger conversation of somatic transformation, since I know some of you may be new to this work, I want to share a few words. And if you're not new to this work, let these words also be a deepening of how you understand this work and this process as well. So here at the Strozzi Institute, we teach what we call a somatic arc of transformation, meaning a process of moving from more of like an old reality or the old shape, if we're talking about the body and the soma, moving away from perhaps old narratives, old habits, old ways of being, towards some kind of a new reality where, as we like to say, more life is possible. And that can be both as an individual and also as the collective. What does that mean, a somatic arc of transformation? It means that we see that if we talk about a human body, a human system, or even a collective system, that there's a somewhat reliable process that one goes through to get from A to B when we're talking about change. And inside of that, what we see as well is that for the body to open, to unfold, to allow the possibility of something new, that the body tends to learn on yes. Meaning, rather than here's what's wrong, let me try to fix it, that the body is often, and the soma is often more likely to want to open to something that feels like a new possibility, something that feels like a draw, something that's compelling, something that invites a yes shape or a yes experience, a yes vibration maybe. So when we support folks in the context of navigating this arc of transformation, we didn't make this up, right? It's kind of how the body or how a human self tends to evolve, but we can help to guide folks along the path in the particular kind of method we teach in somatics. So we find that having upfront or early in the stages of this process of transformation, a commitment that really is a declaration of a new possibility, or a commitment that says, hey, here's where I'm going. Here's what I'm up to. Here's what I long for. Here's what I see possible. Something that is in more that positive direction that paves the way for things to start opening in that direction. you might say that the experience of having that commitment makes it worth the journey. And I say that lightly, but also in some ways with seriousness, that this process of real change, deep change, somatic transformation, as we say, not for the faint of heart sometimes, that it actually can ask a lot of us. And in having this declaration or this commitment that is setting our intention towards something new that we actually do want, that does matter to us, or that feels compelling to us, it's like, oh, I want to keep going. So how do we do that? In the context of this work, we teach the process of making what we call an embodied declaration. Declaration being a commitment to a future possibility, which kind of sounds crazy when I say it out loud. Like, how can I commit to the future? I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's possible, maybe. But nonetheless, we teach a process of choosing, creating a simple, often it's a one sentence phrase that begins with, I'm a commitment to, and that names the thing that we may be sensing into or wanting to forward in our life, or again, sometimes it's bigger, it might be for our organization or in our collective, and that it reminds us what we care about. It helps to galvanize our being and kind of smooths the way. And we call it an embodied declaration because it's not just a phrase, right? It's not just something that you make up or a sentence that you speak, but it's something that both comes or gets sourced from the body, perhaps through practice or through really tapping into a sense of longing. And also it's something that we use inside of embodied practice. So it's like, maybe I speak this phrase, but also I line myself up with that in my body and in the way that I'm choosing to practice from now on. And I say practice like maybe we do a martial arts based practice or a centering practice that helps us build new skills. But then also I'm practicing all the time in my life. And so holding this declaration, lining myself up with that new way of being, and then going through my life, we might also call a practice. Now, if you've been around this work for a while, you may know that coming up with a great declaration can be a bit of a task. Sometimes they just sort of arrive and we go, amazing, I have this declaration. I'm going to use this for the next 6 months, next 12 months. And that's awesome when that happens. It's maybe like 5-10% of the time, I would say, as a teacher in courses. More often, it's like, wow, how do I find, how do I source, how do I craft, create this declaration? And in some ways, because the declaration, the actual statement of the commitment, or what we're calling a declaration, is in the realm of language, it can be tempting, even kind of hard not to kind of come up with it from the head, to maybe flip into a certain competency that many of us have, right? So we teach embodied leadership. Often folks come into our work with certain competencies in the realm of leadership or of communication. So it can be easy and tempting to kind of flip into, well, let me figure it out with my mind. Let me wordsmith it and craft it, for example. Let me see if it lines up with a SMART goal or a set of SMART goals that I know how to create, so that I can get there, so that I can have it down, so that I can get it right. And that's not bad. I've done that. I will continue to do that at different moments. And what I want to say around sourcing commitments through the body is that sometimes that leads us to something that is a little less deep, or maybe a little less galvanizing than what could be possible. And also, again, from the perspective of coming into this work to learn to work with the body, we might say that the body can offer a lot of wisdom if we give it the time and the chance to do that, and maybe don't gloss over with a quick wordsmithed kind of pithy thing that sounds good, but maybe doesn't quite get to it. So what we're really looking for inside of this conversation of sourcing commitments is something that comes more from the body up. And what I've found is that there's not really necessarily like a cookie cutter way to achieve that, but that one of the real steps, one of the deep steps, is listening and being willing to create that space, maybe being willing to suspend judgment or suspend the quick decision or suspend even the SMART goal. I'm seeing in the chat comments on SMART goals. So specific, measurable, and I forget the rest. But a process that has been used to set goals in the past is to suspend maybe the things we've already learned about how to source or create a commitment to see what else is possible that we could learn. And so really what the alternative could be, and this is the possibility I want to offer through our practice today and through your reflections today, is that maybe it even starts with something that's a little bit less verbal, that it maybe begins with something that feels more like an urge or an impulse or a sense of longing, and even as I speak it, right, my body, I'm like, that there's a moving towards or a reaching or an asking. Sometimes it's the opposite too, like a visceral, I don't want that anymore. I'm done with that. So it can be in both directions. But that often it has a shape to it, maybe a quality to it that's a little different than what we've had before. And really, I would say that always it's in the direction of more life. And it's beautiful. I was about to say that, and I'm noticing the chat says, can it come in the form of pain? Says Angelina. Yes, it can. How is pain more life? There's kind of that's a long conversation, but sometimes the first layer that shows up, right, is more of a painful or a visceral reaction to something. That can be many things. It can be like the pain of a loss. That then starts the process to open us to being able to find and feel even underneath that what the longing is. It can be a sense of pain of it's time to move away from something. And then, of course, the declaration or the commitment is maybe in the other direction, and many other things I'm probably not naming right away. So don't ever let what I've said about what it could be the codification of or a cage around what your process for finding this for yourself becomes. So that all being said, as context, I'm curious if folks are willing to share in the chat what happens for you when a commitment is a good idea, but it just hasn't really landed in the body. And again, if you've been around this work, it might be that you're reflecting on a declaration you had that didn't quite go, a sort of somatic declaration, or if you're brand new to this conversation, just however you relate to that. Have you had a commitment where it's kind of a good idea, but it hasn't really landed in your body? Jane says it's hard to remember. Selma says procrastination. It feels like an idea. It fades away. Let's see. Angelina says unfinished business. Robin says it remains an idea, wishful thinking, but no action. Lisa says it falls away. Isabel, it feeds self-judgment and not being good enough. Crystal says it's hard to follow through. Dina says, I don't do my practices. Yeah. Sarah says disconnection between reality and fantasy. One of the things I appreciate about some of these responses is that it almost can create a dissonance. And in some ways, what we're looking for in a great declaration is more like a resonance. Not that we always then therefore do our practices. That's a really high standard that I wouldn't hold anyone to. Sometimes it's still hard. Sometimes it, even sourcing that motivation when we have the best declaration ever can be challenging. But that nonetheless, it's like there's a stickiness to it or a galvanization of it or like a hard to forget about it or a something else that's different than some of what you've named here in the chat. So I'm appreciating that dissonance that can come. Yeah, and then let me ask this question as well. So, and have you, and if the answer is no, not yet, totally fine. That's what we're here for, to explore and to dig into. But have you had an example of something like either a commitment or declaration or even a desire or a longing that came through the body and started to pull you in a new direction? And I don't necessarily, so rather than put something in the chat here, you can if you want, but actually take a moment for yourself if you brought a notebook or something to take notes on, and just remind yourself of what that was. Was there a time, whether you called it a declaration or not, whether you even made a commitment or not, that something came through that felt more like it came from the body or it came from somewhere that was a little bit less the mind and a little bit more visceral, that pulled you or even pushed you in another direction? that you liked, right? That felt useful. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Uh-huh. Good. So I'm seeing a lot of different things in the chat. So some people are sharing their examples. Some people are asking more questions. Wait, how does it come from the body? Doesn't it always start in the mind? What does that mean? Um, we're going to answer some of that through practice. A couple of examples that are shared here. Looks like Alan Fernandez says, yes, I opened an art gallery in Hudson, New York. Cool. Aaron says, healing from surgery, my body called me to get to the redwoods even when I could hardly walk using a walker. There was a knowing there. Mm-hmm. Guyana says, a change of life as a result of a commitment to myself. Let me know if I pronounced your name right. Mm. Yeah. Jason says, working with a commitment is like a massage where I can just sense that I'm close, but it's not quite right. There's like a feeling in the body like, oh, it's almost there, but not quite there. Angelina says, I left a job that my head said was safe, but my body screamed no. I relate to that. Yeah. Okay. So for those of you who still have questions, we're going to take it into practice in just a moment. I'll also share an example to give you also something to hang it on. What I want to say as well about the questions is that, in some ways, the practice of sourcing a commitment or sourcing even a new direction from somewhere other than the head can be quite revolutionary. It can kind of lead us to get out of our box. It's often more likely, like there were a lot of examples here that were like, oh, my head thought one thing, so that, my head said the job was safe, but my body screamed no, right? So often our mind is going to do the thing that we've learned, the thing that we've already practiced. And sometimes the body is where often that information of like, oh, here's something different. Here's another longing. Here's a new direction. Here's something that's not what I thought can come from there. And one of the things that is potentially revolutionary about this, right, is that, and this is why we do the work we do at the Jersey Institute, that, since about 400 years ago, beginning with Descartes, we really kind of held that the mind and the body were separate. That was a belief that humanity sort of took a turn at believing. And that mostly what mattered was the mind, the thinking, the figuring it out, the rational, and that the body maybe wasn't as important or, just was kind of like the thing that would come along for the ride. So very much, and again, you're probably here because you know this, but just to name it, that in this work, we're taking a different stand that really is backed by modern neuroscience, embodied cognition, that the body is its own brain. And that from our perspective, in many ways, the body and self are one, and that you can get to know the self through the doorway of the body. You can contact the self or learn more about the self. And if it's not your practice already, right, if this is kind of a new conversation for you, it can be surprising. Like, whoa, hold on. Really, there's other information there. I can say that when I started this work, I was an athlete, so I was very much a body person from the perspective of like doing body and being in the body and working on the body. But I was also very intellectual, and like learning how to listen was its own craft. Believing that it was possible to source things through the body became a pretty long path, and really started to open doors through the practice of it, not through the figuring it out. So that all being said, what I'd love to do actually is move into some practice, give you a chance to try this on, feel this out for yourself once again. And we're going to do we'll do something that is, a foundational centering practice, but then we'll expand it out a little bit and really be in this question of sourcing information or sourcing more around a commitment. So what I want to invite is that if it makes sense to you, to hold this next practice with an intention that something you need to know or something that might be part of a new commitment or a deepening of a current commitment come forward or show itself to you. And if that doesn't happen, that's okay, but that we're really kind of laying groundwork for that to be funny. I'm starting to go into the body and now I've lost my thoughts. But basically, we're going to lay groundwork for the body to give us more information, whether or not you get the information in the next 25 minutes that we're doing the groundwork regardless. So let's take a moment. If you would like, I'm going to go ahead and stand for this practice. Often we will do that in the dojo. If standing is not possible or not preferred for you right now, you're also welcome to do the same practice sitting down. All options are available. And so I invite you to, once again, like we started, go ahead and bring your awareness into the sensations in your body. So we call this first piece a basic centering practice. We do this to get more present, more open, more connected, and also to become more in touch with the life of the body, the aliveness inside of the body, and to create some space for even more of that to come through or to show itself. So letting yourself breathe if you weren't doing that already, or breathe more deeply if you were. Letting yourself feel just that first pivot to noticing sensation. Good, and then from here we'll take a few moments to move through the 4 dimensions of center, which we teach here at the Strozzi Institute. The first one being length, so allowing yourself to start to inhabit your full length of your body, meaning top of the head to the bottom of your feet. How do we do that? Letting the head rise up, so being in the full extension of your spine, maybe creating a little space between each of the vertebrae, while at the same time letting the muscles rest on the bones, the relaxing, rooting down, also extending, rising up. And then see if you can relax in places that would help you do that with less effort. So maybe unlocking or untightening the jaw, relaxing the spot between your shoulder blades, releasing any tension in your hips or your knees if you can. Letting the body do the work, letting the skeleton do the work. And then feeling here for, we often will say this is the line of our dignity, so letting yourself feel sense. Imagine you're really standing in your own dignity, who you are, that you have a right to be here. Good, and then we'll take a moment to center in our width, the side to side of us. Letting yourself here unfurl or relax out from the midline of your body to the edges of yourself. You might also check, balancing the weight side to side, like, am I here in the center? Am I pulled off in one direction? So coming right to center and then extending, opening out, and opening out both in the body and in your presence, which might extend beyond your body. as far as feels right for you right now. For some of us, that might mean pulling your edges in just a bit. For many of us, that's going to mean extending or opening out. So finding right width for you that feels like, I can be connectable here, and I'm also taking care of myself. We talk about width as the social domain, making space for being with, being connected, letting yourself have that, try that on in your presence. And along the way, as we make these adjustments, you can notice, did I need to change something to find optimal here for me? Did I open something or close something? Did I shore something up or let something go? Good, and then let's also center in what we call the depth, which is the front, the back, and the inside. So taking a moment first to bring your awareness again to the inside of your body, feeling for your heart, your lungs, your belly or guts. And then really letting yourself linger here for a moment and inviting other things to also be included, like parts of yourself that may be tucked away, any longings that don't get a lot of attention, things you know that perhaps hide out in there, older parts of yourself. I just say, like, include them in your presence right now, as much as you're willing. They can be a part of this practice. Good, and then let your attention shift to your back, the space behind you, the back of the body, back of your head, your literal back, low back, backs of your legs, and the space behind. And you can include here as well anything that might be at your back in actuality or in metaphor. So history, the path you've walked, letting the body be the doorway to also then including those things, even if they're not here right now, they're still here in you. Ancestors, training. Good, and then lastly, we'll bring our awareness to the front of the body, front of the face, the chest, the legs, belly, and the future. What's ahead? Where you're going. Literally, the space in front of you. And including as well what you envision, what you sense. Good, and then let's go ahead. If you'd like, you can place your hand on your center and allow yourself to really drop in even one more time, one more layer to this center of gravity in your body. This is the place that weight gets organized from. In our practice, we can organize our whole presence from here. And let yourself feel, intend to center here in possibility, in purpose, even in longing. And go ahead and in whatever way makes sense to you, let that shape your presence. If you have a current commitment, you can speak it out loud. If there's something that you've already identified or named here that feels like a longing, you can speak that out loud or to yourself. And really let that shape your body, your presence. So really being in, feeling, and allowing any information that wants to come through here. Let's take a moment again and ask your body that same question. What do you know? Or if it feels better for you, you can ask, what do you want? What do I want? What do I know? What do I want? And we say, like, as much as possible, let your body answer. Great. And then let's go ahead and do this. Go ahead and take just a moment, take one step forward, and as you do, let yourself come out of that just a bit and get a little bit more in your head. So maybe start thinking, planning, figuring things out. If you've got something there, see if you can make more sense of it. And just notice what happens to yourself, to your body, to... Sometimes this is totally useful. It might be like it gets more structure, or it might be like, oh, it gets more confusing. So letting yourself bring that and bring yourself into more like a mind space. And just noticing how you did that. What are the qualities of this space? How does this live in your body? Maybe you're not feeling your body, or you are. Good, and then let's go ahead and take one step back and let that be an intentional cue for yourself to come back into this feeling, sensing state that we've been cultivating in our centering. Here's what it's like when I'm in feeling, when I'm in maybe body listening or sensing. And just notice the difference. How did you get there? What's it like? How does your breath change? What's different in your body? Good, and then we'll try this on just one time before we complete the practice. Taking one step forward again, let yourself make that shift. Sometimes it's useful to use the mind to be thinking about things, to figure it out. Just let yourself be in this one more time. And from here, again, you can speak out loud or just say this to yourself. What I want is... and just see what comes. What I want is... No wrong answers. And one more time to take note. We'll come back to that. One more time, go ahead and take a step back. And just practice making that shift into a different state. A sensing, feeling, body state. Again, here, be checking in with your length, your width, your depth. Taking one more moment to call in or to invite through your body a sense of purpose, a sense of knowing. And same thing, speaking to yourself or out loud, what I want is, what I want is. And just take note. Okay. However you'd like to complete that practice for yourself right now, I'm going to place a hand on my belly and my heart and just take one more moment to listen, to feel. And when you're ready, you're welcome to join me back. If you'd like to share anything in the chat, either what you want from your body or your head, or something more like a realization, something you learned, something you became aware of. Kristen says, I want to trust myself and the world around me. David says, peace. Moving and creating for a balanced self. Oops. Says Sarah, living from purpose, cultivating courage. Body says, I want to feel spacious and be seen, says Angelina. Sue says, my mind was agitated, my body was peaceful. Nancy says, I'm worthy. Thomas, I want balance, being nurtured by my partner. Samara, it was clear when I was in my body, but when I went to my head, my legs started shaking. Maybe it's a sign of enough of thinking. Thank you. Jane says, I didn't want to step forward. Beautiful. Okay, go ahead and grab your notebook or whatever you're keeping notes on. I'm going to give you just a couple of reflection questions and a little bit of homework. So if you haven't captured it for yourself yet, what does your body want, or what did you learn here? What does your body want? If what came through was something that was more like a knowing, or even like a new commitment or declaration or direction, you can capture that too. And the second question is, I really want to invite you to see if you can stay in sensing more than thinking as you answer this. The second question is, how might I be a starting point for that? Or how could I? How can I? be a starting point for that. That being what your body or your heart wants that you just wrote down. Another question. It's okay if you just start answering and come back to these later or after this call. How do you talk yourself out of that? And how might you begin letting it in? How do you talk yourself out of that, if you do? And how might you begin letting it in or making space for it?
This is really wonderful, LeeAnn. Thank you so much for leading us in this practice. And I see that you put the questions in the chat.
I did, and one of them is a little different. So if it's helpful, y'all can copy those and take them with you. I know Salinas is going to talk about what's coming. One thing I want to say in closing is take your time. No need to rush to an answer. If you start to form something into a declaration, in our practice, we use the expression, I am a commitment to, and you can try some things on. And Salinas may have this already to say, but part of what we do in the context of, say, an EL1 or some of our longer courses is that we spend time together in these ways, tilling the soil, planting seeds through body-based practices, asking these kinds of deepening questions, coming back again, and that by the end of our time together in 4 days, you come out with normally a pretty solid, clear and simple declaration, as well as practices that support you to walk towards that new future that you're committing to and intending. So let this be the beginning of whatever you do next, but really to be a ground for some new possibilities for yourself.
Yes. And this is great because LeeAnn is leading our next Embodied Leadership Level 1 course, which will be March 25th through the 28th. So we hope that you'll be able to join us. I've just put a lot of things into the chat that's coming up because I don't want you all to miss it. So please copy it before the call ends. Again, LeeAnn is leading Embodied Leadership Level 1 course, March 25th through the 28th. We also have a course that is being led by Richard Strozzi called Embodying the Mystery, which is really how does mystery and being connected to spirit and landscape help you towards being more of you and more present. That is a retreat. It's a 4-day course that's over 2 weekends. That will be March 13th and 14th, as well as March 20th through the 21st. I believe Richard is also going to join you in March for the Embodied Leadership Level 1.
I'm told he'll be making some cameos.
Making some cameos. So if you're hoping to catch him, this is a good time to do so. Last but not least, we have open enrollment for the somatic coaching program. That does require that you have your prerequisite complete, and that's the Embodied Leadership Level 1 course. Or if you've completed the Embodied Leadership Core course, you can begin to set your pre-enrollment call with me to discuss the possibility of joining that course. All these things are in the chat. I will post them again. And I really want to encourage people to take the moment, copy it, put it someplace. Otherwise, you can send me an email and I will tell you the same things all over again. But it's been really great to have you all practicing with us this morning.
Thank you all. Thanks for being here. Many blessings, and take this into the world and make some change.
Yeah, have a great day. Bye, all.